Hey guys, just a quick message before we start. I want to bring to your attention that it's two people who need help right now. The first is River Stone, who has a GoFundMe, and the GoFundMe was actually started by Bonnie Woodruff, and this is to help her with some personal issues that she's come across that she just legit can't afford. And a little about Riverstone is she is a spiritual healer and consultant, and she does tarot readings and all that good stuff. She's a real cool woman, very down to earth, very helpful, and right now she needs help herself. And I'm hoping that we can do something about it. And even if you can't offer any money, then just showing some type of support is huge. Sharing the GoFundMe or commenting, just letting her know that we have her back. So that'll be amazing if you guys can click on that and leave a message, or even contact her on Facebook to leave a message. The second link is to a PayPal for a friend to the show, John Marsh, and he's also known as Dark Caliber. He streams on Mixer. He streams video games on Mixer and everything as a hobby, and he's a real cool guy. And his Christmas wish is to see his son. That simple. I won't go into all the personal details, but I'll just say that the ex is being extremely unfair, and he's trying his hardest to get legal representation so he can see his son. And I'm hoping that we can also help him out. And again, even if it's only a message saying, hey, I support you, I was in the same situation, be strong, anything, it goes a long way. Just knowing that there's someone out there who sympathizes and they can understand or just give some type of support, that would mean a lot. So you guys, I'm asking from the bottom of my heart if you can do me that favor. Click on those links, leave them a message, just let them know that they're not alone in their struggle, and they have people there supporting them. Maybe not physically next to them, but at least spiritually, they're not alone. So thank you all in advance, and on with the show. Hello, and welcome to Unexplained Possibilities Podcast. I'm your host, Melvin the Crimson Taurus, and as you can see, Niema isn't here with me. She's away traveling. She'll be back sometime next month. Now, as you know, if Niema isn't with me, I always bring a guest on to join me, and today is no exception. So, perhaps you guys have heard of John Travolta, Kirstie Alley, Tom Cruise. Of course, everyone knows them. Now, aside from being actors, they are all a part of I don't want to say cult, but to me it seems like a cult. So we'll just be nice and we'll just say a group called Scientology. And I don't know much about Scientology. As a matter of fact, I was doing some research, and I didn't get anywhere. So when that happens, you seek out someone who knows about this stuff. And good old YouTube did not fail me. With 30 years of experience with Scientology, and she's no longer in there. She got out. I am happy to introduce our guest for today, Torymagoo, the former Scientologist. Let's get that straight, guys.
Thank you.
Now, I just said you have 30 years of experience in Scientology.
Yeah, I do. And I know, let me say this to all of your listeners, because I've been out for 18 years. I escaped out in 2000. I was chased across the country. The Tampa police got me out of the Tampa airport. And the first thing people say is, how could you have stayed in somewhere for 30 years? And the first thing I started saying was, have you ever seen the movie The Truman Show? And a lot of people have. And if you have, you get it. That's Scientology. You're in the show and you don't know it. You can't see the walls. You also, I have to let you know, there was no internet when we all got in. And academics who study cults say the two worst ones are the Moonies and Scientology. Why? Because they build in traps where you cannot look, you cannot read, you cannot talk to anybody that has information against the Church of Scientology, or Hubbard, or Miscavige, who runs it now.
You see, so basically, they keep you ignorant to the outside world and keep the outside world from leaking into you, no matter
exactly.
What. And
it's brainwashing, and you don't know it. See, that's the tricky thing. You don't know that it has to do with brainwashing and mind control.
I mean, that's actually quite scary. So when you got out and you saw, I guess, the world, what went through your mind?
Well, I'll tell you, it was really shocking because, as I call it, waking up, where you're kind of in a coma almost in this Truman Show, this Scientology Truman Show, and everything's wonderful, just like the Truman Show. It's wonderful. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. It's so great that you're here, Melvin. You just came to the right place. You are in the right place at the right time. And when you're surrounded by, 10, 20, 30 people that are constantly telling you that, you can say, oh, that wouldn't affect me. I would never do that. But you don't know. You have to remember what you're hearing today. We did not hear it. You could not look at it. You couldn't hear it. You couldn't listen to it. And Hubbard had a very sneaky way of building it in so that it was like, if you want to be free, you can't really start talking to those people because they're just going to ruin your life. And you're like, and so they're like, it's choice. Do you want to be free or do you want to have your life ruined? Your eternity. Because that was his thing. It was your eternity. And it was like, well, and plus you have to remember, we were hippies at the time. I was in Haight-Ashbury in the 60s and rolled right into Scientology. So it was sort of like, I don't know, it sounded pretty good to us. At the time, it was like we were helping mankind. We were going to clear planet Earth. It sounded good.
Well, I guess it's one of those things that it was too good to be true.
Absolutely. And in the old days, you can talk to many people like myself who were in for a long time. We got in the 60s. More than most of your audience weren't born then. And if they were, they probably weren't watching Scientology or listening to it. And it's like most of us were, true believers. It was fun. We were having a good time. I mean, it was like a giant party in the old days. It was. It was different than it is now. Way different.
Okay, because, I'm sure a majority of people now, I learned about Scientology from the show with Leah Remini, Scientology in the Aftermath. And when I was younger, much younger, I've heard of Scientology, but I didn't know what it was. I was like, L. Ron Hubbard. Didn't he make that terrible Battlefield Earth movie or something? Oh, my God. That movie is god-awful. Never seen it.
Thought was god awful too when we were in. It was god awful. It was. And I helped train John Travolta and I like him to this day. I mean, I don't like that he's a representative of the church and I feel bad for him that he won't be honest with really where he's at. Mm-hmm. But as a person, he's a good person and I like him.
Yeah, he's actually
First, Tom Cruise, who I would not say the same about.
Yeah, John Travolta, he's one of my favorite actors. If I were gay, I would probably be gay for John Travolta. But
and many other guys.
My mom actually met him once. I guess he was, I don't know, doing something for a role, and she told me he was coming out of a hamburger stand in Los Angeles, and he had like a giant bag of hamburgers, and he's just stuffing away, and everything had his beard and stuff. It's like, oh my, John. So he kind of let himself go. But like, he always seemed like a stand-up guy to me. But
He is. I think he is.
Versus, like you said, Tom Cruise. I don't know him personally, never met him. He's kind of scared after that Oprah jumping on the couch thing. And he just seems like a very intense person. But,
He is. And he's run by the church.
okay.
And I was there when they, quote unquote, handled him. And, before that, they have a place called Flag in Clearwater, Florida, which is their big mecca. And we were all there, and the word had gotten out that Tom Cruise was now a Scientologist, but it was like, don't tell anyone, right? And I was like, okay, all right, we won't tell anybody. Who cares, right?
Yep.
But then they had a huge event, and out comes Tom Cruise. I am a Scientologist, and I am a trained auditor, meaning like a counselor. And if I can get trained, you can get trained. And we all left that day, and this was in the, I think, 90s, the early 90s, and we left saying, somebody handled that guy. I mean, it was just so obvious.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. I just, and it's so funny because you just said earlier, like, well, don't say it can't happen to you and stuff like that. And I was literally about to say and think, like, how does that happen? Like, that would never happen to me. I would not fall for this stuff. And but
no, neither would we if we knew what you know. You see what I mean? If we knew what you know,
yeah.
or if we had access to the internet at all, most of us would have never been in Scientology. Although I will say, the truth be known, there are still people joining Scientology, which is why I am still making videos and talking to people about it. Because there are still people, and once they get in, boy, they will not talk to you. They will not look at anything. It's awful. And that's to this day.
Yeah. Okay, so what made you seek out Scientology, or was it just thrown on you?
No, it was actually Actually, academics say people don't join cults. Cults find you. And that's a bit true. Like, what happened was I was a hippie in Haight-Ashbury, got sick. My parents flew me back to Chicago, and I was in the hospital, and these guys brought in this Dianetics book. And I lived in Lake Forest, which was a very wealthy, snotty town for me, I thought. I mean, I grew up in Park Ridge, which is more upper middle class. But then my dad was a celebrity and made a lot of money. And so then they moved to Lake Forest to build their quote unquote dream house. And it was just a nightmare for me. So anyway, long story short, these kids from Lake Forest High School, first of all these other Lake Forest people came in and went, oh, Tory Christman, what a shame. You got sick, or something. They were just creepy. And I was like, yeah. And finally, these kids come in with the Dianetics book, and they said, they asked me a bunch of questions. And so I finally said, well, what do you guys do? And they said, we're Scientologists. And I had been studying Buddhism and Taoism, and I was just like the volcano in the old ads. It was like, wow, Dianetics, what is that? And they said, well, we'll leave you a book. You can have it. You can read it. And I only read 3 chapters. I had a fight with my dad. And I wanted to be just as to explain something. My grandfather was a doctor, and I wanted to be a doctor. But then once I got in college, I thought there's just no way I'm going to make it through all of college, another 4 years of school, 4 years of med school, internships. It was just like, I was not interested. And so I basically, I just come from Haight-Ashbury, where we were with the Doors and Janis Joplin and the Rolling Stones and, you name it. You name the great bands, I was with them, right? And so, hanging out with them and stuff like that. So now to be in college with these super straight people in Lake Forest, it was just like, ugh. And this kid gave me this Dianetics book. I only read 3 chapters, but it talked about clearing planet Earth, which is like getting rid of all the bad things that you have in your head, and then you're going to be free. And I thought, well, that's about as good as being a doctor. And I had a fight with my dad, and he said, it's time for you to go to bed. And I said, Dad, I'm in college. I'm a night owl. It's 10:30. I'm not going to bed.
Go to bed. I don't care.
Like really me to go to bed. And so I pulled down my shade, and he said, it's our morals or no school. right? So I pulled down my shade, and this is a good lesson for any parents. You have to really understand when you give kids that kind of ultimatum and they're like me, where they're really spunky. I pulled down my shade and I wrote in lipstick, "Your morals are no school, screw you." And I packed my bags and I hitchhiked in 1969 from Chicago to Los Angeles to do Scientology. Because the back of the book said St. Hill, England, which I knew I couldn't make it there, or American St. Hill in Los Angeles. And I thought, well, looks like I'm going to Los Angeles.
Wow. Okay,
So it's a
so
pretty wild story. It
we
started out.
we officially need a movie of your life now.
I know many, many people. I have friends who are in the industry who are writers and producers, directors, and they're all like, we have to make a movie of your life, because this is just one little section of it. But believe me, I have a pretty wild life.
Wow. Okay. So that's pretty rad actually, but I mean, that's the ultimate rebellion, but it was rebelling for enlightenment in an odd way.
Yeah, in an odd way. That's what I thought. And once I got there, okay, I hitchhike here. And inside are these people that you all see now. They're in uniforms. Now, you have to I'd been picketing against the Vietnam War for 2 years. So now I walk up to this building. It's super organized, which I was against organizations. They're in Navy uniforms, which I'm like, now, wait a second. I'm just picketed against, not against the servicemen, but against the Navy. Do you see what I mean? I was very much against the military at the time, and they're very military-like. And then the third thing was they had these huge pictures of Hubbard up, and he looked like Hitler to me. I mean, they had him all over the place. And I thought, now, wait a second. And so I walked in and I said, well, I want to talk to this guy. Because my friend said, just ask for John Hildebrand. He's on the big course. So I said, I want to talk to John Hildebrand. He's on the big course. And this real snotty lady in her Navy uniform said, you can't. He's on course. He'll call you at 10:30. So I said, okay. So I hitchhiked back out to the valley. They said, if you need a place to crash, go to this guy's house. So I hitchhiked back to this guy's house. I mean, these were the old days, in the 60s where, I didn't know this guy, but okay, I'll crash at his house, right? So I go there and we get stoned and we're laughing. And I'm like, yeah, right. The guy's going to call me at 10:30, because people who get stoned never do anything. That was my reality. It's like we would plan all these things in Haight-Ashbury, but we never did anything. We'd get stoned and we'd forget about it. So now we're stoned and we're like, oh yeah, the guy's going to call you at 10:30. And at 10:35, he called me and he said, you know what? I'm going to come out and get you. So again, we get stoned thinking, oh yeah, right. He's going to drive all the way out to the valley to get you. Sure. He did. He showed up in about 10 minutes and he put me in the car. We drove back to American St. Hill, which is one of their that's where I walked up to. It's the big organized thing. And we just sat in his car. He bought some beer, and I thought, well, he can't be all bad. He drinks beer, right? Because they looked so robotic. They did. And so I thought, I don't want to be one of those guys. But he bought some beer, and I thought, well, he can't be all bad. He drinks beer. And so then we just sat in the car, and I asked him about those uniforms, and he said, don't worry about that. That's, the Sea Org. There's those people. They help Hubbard run the church. It's nothing you want to do. And, just each thing that I had, why do they wear the Navy uniforms? Oh, it was just Hubbard. He lived out in the ocean, and that was his thing. Don't worry about it. And the third thing was the photographs. Why does he have up all those pictures? And he said, I don't know. Who cares? Let's go. What did you get into Scientology for? And I said, I want to be an auditor, which is like a counselor. And he said, all right, let's go talk to the auditors. And I swear to God, to this day, I remember the second I turned off my critical thinking. And to anyone hearing this, don't ever do it, because it's a really bad idea where you see a whole bunch of people and they sound so cool. And I remember thinking, I don't care what these people do. I want to be like them. And that was the end of my critical thinking and really looking at things critically, and instead just being part of the mob in the Truman Show.
Wow. And no,
and just the beginning.
It's almost like high school in some ways,
Yeah,
where you want to be with the in crowd, not
right,
necessarily you, but you want to be with the in crowd. You want to be one of the cool guys and stuff like
right.
that. And everyone outside of that group, well, they're kind of nerdish. Just ignore them. They just don't get it, and that's just very interesting. And
And I always tell younger people, just so you know, the vast majority of those quote unquote cool people, because I was with them, are just as screwed up as you are. I mean, everyone in their teens is pretty screwed up. And I now know, I knew when I left Scientology, 4 people, Scientology young people who had killed themselves. I now know 15 people who have taken their own lives. And I can't say it enough. There is no reason to take your life. You just need to get through a certain age period where everything feels like it's just too much. I'm out of here. No, don't. Stay.
okay, yeah, that's a very important and good message. And okay, so what would you tell your younger self if you could? And after your little argument with your father, before you get the lipstick out, what would you say to her? Like young Tory, what would you say?
I would say this. First of all, you are going to work for a shitload of years. I mean, way longer than you think. Because you have to remember, I grew up with a pretty wealthy family, so things were pretty easy for me. And I would tell myself, you're not going to be on easy street by yourself. This is a rough world, and you need to get trained in something, whether it's a college degree, but make sure it's something where there's jobs out there, because there's tons of college graduates now where there aren't any jobs for them anymore. So you have to make sure there's jobs, and there are going to be jobs in 5 and 10 years. Secondly, if you don't want to do college, get trained in some kind of something you can hang your shingle out and say, this is who I am. I charge 20, 30, 40, $50 an hour. Whatever it is, something. There's all kinds of trades out there. Be a car mechanic, be a hairstylist. There's a million different things. Medical, there's all kinds of things in the medical industry where they pay pretty good money, and there's a lot of jobs, and they're going to be there forever. And like my friend who works for the gas company said, he goes, you know what, Tori? I have a lot of money. And he said, it's not sexy, but I make a lot of money. And that's a thing to remember, because most younger people go for the sexy stuff. I want to be a movie star. I want to be a musician, that kind of thing. And I live in LA, so I hear it all the time. There's thousands of young people out here that are going to be the next so and so. And it's not that they can't, it's just my thing. I was married to a starving writer, so I know the drill. And my thing is, get something that you can make money at right now, and then move into whatever your hope or your dream is. Do that at night, work in the day, or vice versa, but make money, get something that where you're viable.
That's again very good advice. You're gonna have to write a book too, as well as that movie.
Yeah. I know, I've been talking for a long time. I do have good advice. I think if I had listened to myself, I would have had a whole different life.
Yeah, but I like to think that things happen for a reason, and I'm going to assume, never assume, but I'm going to assume that while you were in Scientology with the church, I do think that you got something out of it as well, right? Whether it be a bit more spirituality, or even like, were you able to travel because of the church or anything like that?
No, no, but
No.
other people do if they join the Sea Org. But even that's awful. But yes, I got something out of it in that I had 30 years. I was in it 30 years, 20 years. I would say we're pretty happy. I was really jumping along. I believed what was going on. I mean, again, had I known the truth, I would have been out of there a long time earlier, but I wouldn't have had my son. And I love having my son. I love that. And so I wouldn't give that up for anything.
Okay. So you mentioned several times the Sea Org. Tell us, what is the Sea Organization?
Okay, Hubbard wrote the book Dianetics in 1950. And then quickly, it made some money, and the IRS started coming after him. And he didn't want to have to pay taxes and worry about that. So he decided to live out on the ocean as a seaman. And if you ever really want to, there's some excellent books that are out there about Hubbard in the old days. L. Ron Hubbard, Messiah or Madman, by Ben Corden, or Russell Miller, Barefaced Messiah, which is another good one. But they tell the real facts of Hubbard, A Piece of Blue Sky. They're different books that have been out for years, and now there's tons of authors that are writing that are leaving and writing their story about what's happening at the top of the church. And they're pretty cool, too. One of them I love is Blown for Good, which is by Mark Headley. And he was up with Miscavige, and it's a really good book, and it's funny, too.
Can you say the name of that book again?
Blown for Good. When you leave, if you leave without all of them saying, yay, you're leaving, which is never, they call it, oh, he blew. Like, oh, Melvin, what happened to Melvin? Oh, he blew. So Mark Headley was at the top, and he wrote a book called Blown for Good.
Okay, that makes sense now. Okay.
Yeah.
That's pretty crazy, though, that they have that much control over a person's life. I mean, I don't quite understand.
Go to YouTube and type in mind control and brainwashing, and you will quickly understand how it works.
Yeah, again, it's one of those things where I'm outside looking in and going back to, oh, this will never happen to me. But I know me so well. You offer me something that's really good to eat, I'm yours. So
yeah, I tell people all the time, they are good at what they do. They really are. And you got to be smart about yourself and take care of yourself, because they're not going to take care of you. They will say anything that they know that you love to say that you can do that in Scientology. Can you? Hell no. No.
Okay. Now, what exactly is Scientology?
That's a good question.
Yeah.
And the truth is, everyone says the same thing. I don't really know about Scientology. And they all say it just like you, like, I'm the only person in the world that doesn't really understand Scientology. But you have to understand that was written by L. Ron Hubbard. He says, make sure it's a mystery sandwich. So you're going to tell them a little bit about it on the top and a little bit on the bottom, but the real inside skivvy is inside the church. So they have to go in and get on course, and it ends up being 30 years of think of it like a triangle, and every single level doesn't quite work, but the next one will.
Yeah, it's just baiting you a little at a time.
Totally bait and switch. That's it. The whole way. And peer pressure, they find out who you respect, who you like, and they'll surround you by those people. And you're just like, well, so-and-so said that it worked for them, so it must work for me.
Okay, so that is really messed up.
Isn't it? It really is. It really, really is. And they're very good at what they do. So again, people say it'll never happen to me. Don't ever say that. Your best protection, and this is by academics who study cults, is learn what is a cult. There's only 9 things that make something a cult. And Robert Lifton came up with the first, thing of brainwashing. And you can, but there's you can just type in cults and what is a cult, and there's all kinds of, I've made videos about it on Torymagoo44 on YouTube, but I've made over 800 videos now, which I just started out, when Mark Bunker said do you know who Anonymous is?
Yes.
Okay, so Anonymous showed up in 2008. And basically someone, quote unquote, had leaked the video by Tom Cruise saying you're either in or you're out. And he looks totally nuts. So, of course, the church, being the morons that they are, ordered it off YouTube. And Anonymous said, not on our watch. You don't know shit about the internet. You don't own the internet. We do. And we're going to show you we do, because we're going to shut down your website for 3 days. And they did. And thinking I had been in this kind of top secret mafia, which is how I ended up getting out. thought, oh, this is just the top secret mafia. They're trying to distract off of this other thing that came out. It's not really anybody but Scientology. So I made a post about that. So the same night they announced they're going to shut down the website, they called me. And they go, this is anonymous. And I'm like, ah! It totally freaked me out. But it turned out it was just young kids. They put me on Skype, and basically they had some very scary plans. And I said, look, I'm going to tell you guys something. You're up against something you don't know. These guys are highly litigious. They will put you in prison, which they have put a couple of them in prison. And you can't do that. And they said, well, what can we do? And I said, let's do a picket. It's totally legal if it's peaceful. And, as many can come as you want. So we ended up with 500 here in LA, 9,000 around the world. It was in February of 2008. You can Google it and see this amazing picket. It just was amazing to see it in almost every major city in the world. And these guys, my analogy is it's sort of like I was getting raped in an alley with maybe 4 or 5 people that would say our names publicly. And, fighting Scientology, and all of a sudden around the corner come 9,000 young kids going, we're on your fucking side and we got this. You know what I mean? It was like, yes! It was really cool.
That must have felt really good for you.
It was wonderful.
Like, yes.
I mean, it was more than good. It was wonderful. It was amazing to watch. And it changed the history of Scientology, because before Anonymous arrived, no one would say their name, like Blown for Good. That's all he was. He was making a lot of posts on the internet, but nobody knew who he was. And that's true for everybody. Jenna Miscavige, who is Miscavige's niece, she was on the internet talking, but nobody knew who she was. Just on and on and on. The day of the picket, tons of people came out saying, he walked up to me, he said, I'm Blown for Good, I'm Mark Headley. And I went, hey, good to meet you. And same for Jenna, same for Jeff Hawkins. It was just like there were just tons of people that ran the church who had left and now were speaking out because of Anonymous. And the media would not do an interview. They would interview me all the time for an hour, but they would really only show about 1 or 2 minutes of me. The rest would be Tom Cruise or John Travolta, somebody else.
Yeah, that's usually how it goes.
Yeah, but after Anonymous, I'm telling you, they wanted to hear our side of the story. Yeah. It was like, wait a minute, 9,000 people, every major city in the world? What happened? Tell us what's going on. They all of a sudden they wanted to know. Nightline did a whole big thing on Scientology. It was really great.
Yeah, and then, of course, later on, you have this Leah Remini show.
Exactly. But A&E would have never, ever done Leah's show without Anonymous. That's my theory. It's just like no media would do anything before Anonymous hit. And that's the effect they had. And they don't give a shit. They're like, we don't care. They don't want any acknowledgement of it. It doesn't matter. But I'm just saying, for me, it mattered because finally the media would tell our side of the story.
Yeah, your voice is being heard.
Yeah, and Leah's show is on, and she's interviewing all these amazing people. If your audience hasn't seen her shows, you really need to try to plug into A&E, and if you don't have it, go to a friend's house who does, because they're really good shows.
Yeah, I 100% vouch for that. I've learned a lot.
Yeah, and how about her partner? Just so everybody, your audience knows, if they haven't seen it, her partner is Mike Rinder. Mike Rinder, you can Google it, and of course Scientology writes all kinds of shit about all of us, but there's tons of information. He does a blog every single day, MikeRinder.com. And you can, I think it's .com, but just make sure it's him and not the church.
Yeah, don't worry. All those links are going to be in the description. So,
okay.
So, yeah.
But he really helps Leah because, she is interviewing them, but then she'll ask him, is that true? And I love her face. She gets so like, oh my God, she just can't believe it.
I would say that she was somewhat of a surface personality, a face, and he was in it, in the...
Wait, he was PR.
Yeah.
For years. He was born in it. So he was way, 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 way in it. So he knows all kinds of dirt, way more than we're hearing even, I'm sure.
Oh, most definitely. And it's actually something he said. And this really this would have made me mad. I would have been in jail. But he was saying that what's his name, Miscavige?
Yeah, David Miscavige.
Yeah, he was saying that guy, he was pretty much a punk and a bully. And
right.
if his little goon squad was around, he would actually punch people and somewhat beat them up. And do you know anything about that? Is that actually true?
It is true. And I know it personally because I know Miscavige. I met him in Clearwater. And he's a little tiny, thin guy,
So
right?
he has Napoleon syndrome.
So, very much. But I'm just saying, he's not, I grew up with big men. My dad was 6'2". He's a football Hall of Fame, right? Tough guy, right? Not that he was a tough guy, but he was a big guy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And my brothers are all 6'2", and my son is 6'4", right? So I grew up around big men. So now, and my ex-husband was 6'2". So I've always been around big men. So then to meet Miscavige, he's like this little shrimp, right? And skinny. So now I'm out and I go to a party and I meet Jeff Hawkins, who's 6 feet or 6, I think he's 6 feet. So I walk up to him and I say, okay, I got to ask you a question. I heard that Miscavige beat you up, but I don't get how somebody as tiny and skinny as Miscavige could actually beat up anybody, really. And this is what Jeff Hawkins told me. He said, here's how he does it. First of all, you have to remember you're in a cult. So you're not going to hit the cult leader. And I said, yeah, that's true. I got that. And he said, generally you're around other peers. So, it's a tricky thing. Secondly, he said he always had big thugs around him, which for many people who followed this, Marty Rathbun admitted on Nightline that he was one of the thugs that used to beat people up, really beat them up. If Miscavige, as to quote Jeff Hawkins, he said he was sort of like he'd come bitch slap you, and then if need be, Marty would beat you up.
What a punk!
I know, and now Marty went back into the church. So how's that?
Wow.
Well, at least so we think. I mean, he vanished. He was suing the church. He and his wife, who, if his wife by any chance hears this, I really hope you get away from him. But she was never in. She was a really nice person. And they were suing the church and winning. And almost to where Miscavige was going to have to go into deposition. And boom, the whole thing, they canceled the whole thing. And they were suing the church. They would have gotten tons of money.
Yeah.
But they sued. I think the church had something on Marty that it scared him. And he basically ran and took the money and ran. And that's it.
Yeah, that's total possibility. So that's interesting, and I mean, just to have this guy, like, I would be in jail because I'm choking him out. Like, as soon as he touches me, that's it. I have a temper. Like, right. I just have a nasty temper with certain things, and I would toss that little man into a window, and then his little goon squad could come.
So you think, and you would as Melvin now, but if for Melvin in the Scientology Truman Show, I would put money on it. No. These guys were tough guys. They were just like you. They were not people that would take shit. But you know what? When you're in a cult, it's a different thing. And it's hard to explain mind control. It really is. But
it's so literally mind-boggling. And I mean, what I try to do is put myself in another person's shoes and try to see it from their perspective and what they possibly gone through and all that, and it's really hard. I can't do it with this. I just can't.
Well, because you're thinking of all the negatives. Yeah. See, if you think of the positive, let's look at the positives. We got in. You're going to free mankind. The world is a mess. We're going to fix it. Okay, that sounds good. Well, how are we going to do that? Well, you're going to clear. He puts in your head that you have an analytical mind and a reactive mind. The analytical mind is like a computer, just computing things, storing them. The reactive mind is all your painful emotions and sensations that you have. And all of us have those, right? Mm-hmm. So he said you can actually clear the reactive mind and erase it. So it's gone, right? So
That's
the original definition of clear was a perfect memory, a perfect IQ, no somatics, no pains. Now, you might say, well, come on, who would believe that? But you have to remember, when we started, a bunch of us were stoned hippies, right? so, so it sounded good to us. It sounded okay. I mean, it's like anybody who believes you can fly or whatever. You know what I mean? It's like, okay, let's try it. And so that sounded good, to be able to clear people. Now, the truth is, you start doing Dianetics, and you might have a few wins, where you're feeling better, things are better, that. But are you really having, let's say you have headaches. Are your headaches really gone? Not really. But one day they seem like they're away. And you say to your auditor, counselor, I think I'm just making all this stuff up. And they go like this: would you like to attest to clear? Now imagine that. Hubbard put it in your head, you have a reactive mind. The end of it is, I'm just making it up. Okay, now you can attest to clear. How weird is that?
Yeah, that's...
And the headaches come back the next day. And now they go, now you have this huge secret, because everyone's going like, wow, Melvin, it's so great, you're clear, that's so fantastic, yay. And now you've got the headaches back, and you're like, what do I do now?
And now it's eating you up inside too, because right. It's like, I can't say anything or else.
Right. So you finally admit it to somebody, and they take you to, guess who? A registrar who gets money from you. And their job is to go, Melvin, now this is top secret, nobody knows it, but it's very common that kind of thing happens. And that's because you need the top. Now think of a triangle. Clear is about 3/4 of the way up. And then there's the top little triangle, right? Mm-hmm. Those are what they call the OT levels, the operating thetan. Thetan is a spirit operating. Anyway, it's just bullshit. It's just more. Hubbard said you have a perfect memory. The first clear couldn't remember anything. He turned around at the Shrine Auditorium and said, what's the color of my tie? And they couldn't remember. So he realized, I got to come up with something much more secret and much more money. Because remember, he said, if you want to make money, start a religion. So he had to, get it together. So he started these OT levels, and they're top secret. Nobody knows about them. So many, many, many people in Scientology don't know anything about these OT levels at all until you get on them. And you have to be invited on them now.
Jeez, this is a lot.
And of course, they don't work.
Yeah, so, well, of course. I mean, if they did.
But Melvin, you're the only one that doesn't work on. Look around. Look at all the people that are winning. Every person here is winning, except you, Melvin. So we're going to send you to correction, and you're going to get fixed so that now you can be amongst the thousands here that are winning. And you're like, okay. I mean, you really feel like a loser, right?
Yeah, it plays on that ego. All of a sudden,
it's like, I'm the only one that's not winning, and you kind of look around and go, they don't look that much better, but you're not allowed to talk about it. It's a high crime in Scientology to talk against anything at all, unless you're with a technical person that's correct to hear it.
That is ridiculous.
It is, but it's all part of the mind control, and it's a slow train of mind control. So all this stuff I'm saying doesn't happen all at once. It's just a slow train of like, hop on the train. This is my analogy. Hop on the train, Melvin. It's $40. Do the communication course. Almost everyone that was their first and last big win was the communication course, right? Mm-hmm. But then, okay, now what? Well, you got to do the next thing. And you're like, well, I want to get off. You said I could get off at the next thing. You're on a train. Okay, I want to get off at this station. Melvin, come on. You said you wanted to handle the headaches. Are your headaches gone? No. But you can communicate better, right? And, of course, you're surrounded by people saying that. So you go, oh, yeah, I can. Okay, so the next thing is this next thing. And John Travolta's on that course. So actually, and they've already found out you really like John Travolta. So they go, Travolta's on the next course. You could be on course with him. And you're like, really? Yeah. Hang on, let me turn this off.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, I turned it off. So, yeah, so you can be on it, but you've got to sign up today. Today's it. That's it. It's either today or, not at all. And you're like, all right, here's my checkbook. There's my money. And now it's like $100. It went from 40 to 100, quickly goes to 1,000, quickly goes to 5,000, quickly goes to 1,000,000. It's a enormously expensive thing that doesn't work.
Yeah, that two things I want to say. One, I kind of wish I didn't say I like John Travolta now, because he's probably going to show up with some hamburgers and say, if you want more,
No,
come on.
you won't. Don't worry.
But the other thing is, Scientology gets expensive to where people, they put up their homes, they'll get a lot of loans from the banks, and
Oh, yeah.
and you, that is the one thing. And is that how they get a lot of their income, from people just trying to do these courses to stay, I guess, with the in crowd and fix themselves with a problem that's not really a problem?
Well, remember, it's a triangle. So there's two sides to it. One is training, where you're learning to become an auditor to help people like you, right? Or me. Do you see what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like, one is you become a counselor. And the other one is you're getting auditing. You're paying for auditing that's going to fix you. So depending, some people do one side, some do the other. Many people do both. So, there's that. And now I forgot what your question was. What is it?
Basically, does Scientology get their money from people, a good majority of people who are trying to, I guess you could say, move up the ranks or become an auditor and this and that, since
Yeah.
they'll put on another mortgage on the house or take
Exactly.
out loans. And then, is that also a way that they could kind of swindle property from them as well? Like,
Totally.
like
Yes.
you have 500,000 in assets. Hey, sign it over to us.
Exactly. And they do that. And the weird thing is, I know people personally who said, Tory, don't move, because I know you're in a little house, which I am in Burbank, but they moved to these big fancy houses. And they said, you know what? The day we moved in, they were here, refi your house, put it on the bridge, pay for your bridge. And we don't own anything now anymore. And we have these huge mortgages that we have to pay. It's awful. I mean, Scientology will take anything from you. And the thing about Scientologists is they are constantly, you never have time to stop and think, because they're in a hurry. Come on, hurry up. Melvin, come on. You got to pay for the next thing. We got to get you on this. We got to get you on it by 2. Wait a minute. What time is it? It's 1:57. Melvin, you've got 3 minutes to pay for it. I'm not kidding. We, get out a credit card. I don't have any money. Okay, call your friend. Call Joe. Call Joe up to just tell him right now you've got 3 minutes to pay for it. We've got to have it today by 2:00, right? And it just happens. You get pressured into it. And you're like, all right. And they will, like, I helped a family. They had a son that was in Scientology who had nothing. And we were talking to them and they said, well, I don't get it. He doesn't have any money. What are they going to do? And I said, but you have a lot of money and they have nothing on draining your bank accounts to zero. Nothing. They will put you out on the street and they don't even care if you're a Scientologist or not. If they get the money, that's all that matters.
You just answered my question. I was getting ready to ask, what happens if you have nothing? They just kick you to the curb.
Yeah, they kick you to the curb. Well, but they used to have like dialing for dollars, where they had a thing where people would sit down and just call person after person. And remember, it's an insulated group. It's like the Truman Show, where everybody's in the show. So you call up and you say, hey, Joe, my name's Tory. You don't know me, but I have to get onto my OT2 today, and it's going to be $3,500. So do you have a credit card I can put it on? I'll pay it back. I've got a job. I'm working. I can pay it back probably within a couple weeks, a month. And they'll either say yes or no. If they say no, you call the next person. Now, I never did this, but I know people who did, and it's awful. It's really awful. I don't know if they still do it even, because I think it's illegal, but they got nailed in quite a few things.
Yeah, but, if you don't see it, it's not illegal. That's
True.
Now,
So,
oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, go on.
I was getting ready to jump to something else real quick. So,
Okay. Okay, good. Jump.
well, I actually want to talk about the family dynamic a little bit, and I'm not a big family person. I'm just not. I don't come from a big family or anything like that. But I do know that having loved ones is important in life. And it seems with Scientology, it's like when someone messes up and they're out. What do they call that? The correct terminology.
Out ethics.
Say that again.
Out ethics.
Out is that it? When you're no, the disconnect. There we go. That's what it is. Is that right? Disconnecting?
Well, if they declare someone suppressive, everyone has to disconnect from them.
Okay.
So as soon as you do anything that they don't like, they declare you suppressive, and then all of your friends, I mean, I lost all my friends and my husband of 27 years overnight.
That's not. And who's the one who came up with that concept? Was it Hubbard?
Hubbard, absolutely. And what happened there, which a lot of people don't know, even to this day, but I know because I was married to my husband, and his parents got in 1950. And in 1950, it was a big crowd of people who loved L. Ron Hubbard. And then slowly people started going, no, we don't agree with you on this. We don't agree with you on that. It was way before they had the big structure of the church. And finally he said, okay, I'm forming a church. And a bunch of them left and said, no, we're out. We're not going to do it. And he didn't want those people, infecting the group. Do you see what I mean? Mm-hmm. So he declared him suppressive. All right, there's some evil people on the planet like Hitler, which this one minister the Scientologist tried to compare me to Hitler. There's Hitler and there's Tory as far as SPs. And I mean, you should have seen these ministers. Their faces were like, are you kidding me? You're going to compare her to Hitler? And it was really great because I had my written SP declare and I brought it out. And I said, you just said in your creed, man has the inalienable right to free speech and free thought. But the truth is, you declare people suppressive, they're not allowed to talk to you, and you won't talk to them. And that's what happens. And the minister that was originally with them and against me came over to me, gave me a hug, said, I can't thank you enough, and I'm so sorry for what you've had to go through. Pretty cool.
Yeah. Hitler, huh?
Yeah, see, you're talking to a partner of Hitler.
Wow. Okay, go you, I guess.
I'm kidding. I mean, it's like disgusting to the point of, oh, come on. He's like the worst person in the world. And to compare me to him, it's like, really?
Yeah, the gall. That's someone who needs to get slapped.
Yeah.
Like, that's simple. Just... You need to get slapped. I'm sorry. It just has to happen at this point. Okay, and now I saw this from Scientology and the aftermath, and I don't know if it possibly changed from since when you were in or not, but is it true that women weren't supposed to get pregnant in the Sea Org?
No, they had plenty of people that got pregnant in the Sea Org for years. But what happened, and again, this is a thing a lot of people don't know, but because I was helping them as a volunteer, they would call me for different things. And they called me up and said, look, you've got to get over here. This is a nightmare. So I said, all right. So I went over and I said, what's up? And they said, the Sea Org kids have joined gangs, like real gangs, like the Bloods and the Crips and stuff like that. And I said, really? And they said, yeah, they have. And we need somebody to handle it. And I said, I can handle it because I'd been on the street in Haight-Ashbury, and I knew how to talk to kids. So I thought, no problem. We go over there, and I say to this kid, what happened? And they said, well, the Code of Honor says always, never, what is it? Always, what is it? Never desert a friend in need, in danger, or in trouble. And he said, these are our friends. And basically, the gang guys had said, because these are kids that really didn't have families because the families were on post all the time. So they never got to really see their kids. Not that they didn't want to, but the church wouldn't let them. So now the gang said, hey, we'll take you in. We'll be your family, but you're loyal to us.
Oh
And they were.
gosh.
And they were trained in the Scientology tech to use against Scientology. I mean, it was fucking scary. It really was. It was like, oh my God. So quickly after that, Miscavige said, okay, no, there's no more babies in Scientology. That's it. And now they make them, I don't know if they still do because it's so public, but I think they do. But there's definitely stories where people had to go get an abortion and be on post the next day.
Oh.
And the public don't know that. I didn't know it at all. Andreas, who has xenu.net, a great website filled with information, was helping me in 2000. And I said, why do you have up this shit about my religion? And he said, I believe in truth. I believe in looking at both sides, and I have the courage to say what I think. I don't think Scientologists are bad. I just think they're misinformed. I suggest you start reading. So I clicked off. I started reading on the internet, and it had, ladies, if you're thinking of joining the Sea Org, read this. And it was by a lady named Mary Tabioyan, and I read it, and she was made to go, she got pregnant, she was made to go have an abortion, and she had to be on post the next day. And I couldn't stop crying. I cried for 4 hours. And that's how I woke up. I mean, I wrote Andreas and I said, I don't know what to do. I can't stop crying, and there's no one I can talk to. No one. Not a soul. What do I do? And he was never in. He's a computer geek in Norway. And he helped me. I said, you've got to help me find somebody that knows what the position I'm in, because I don't know what to do. That's a spooky thing, because once you do wake up, like now there's thousands of us that are out here. So somebody can look up Tory Chrisman and my phone number. I put my phone number on the internet the day I left because I knew if I didn't, they would. So I put it on there, and it's on there, and people can call me, and there you go.
Yeah, beat them to the punch. Like,
exactly.
No neener. What are you gonna do now? But that is horrifying. That's terrible. Like, no, that's disgusting.
Yeah,
and that's just wrong.
Yeah, it's really wrong. And to think they're a church, and they're a dwindling church. They're not expanding as much as they claim they are. They're not. And how could they be? They're cutting out, like the second generation people.
Well, you know what? That'll be their undoing. Whatever. If they crash and burn, let them crash and burn.
Oh, exactly.
At this point, because that's truly terrifying. And what if you're born in Scientology? Because again, I have to reference Scientology in the aftermath.
Sure.
It doesn't seem. It's either you get it or you don't. It's no real middle ground, it seems. And the kids that they showed, they were sent to a camp or something, and I believe these were the ones who didn't quite get it. They were rebelling, so to speak. And if what they said were true, which I believe every single one of them, that camp or whatever, that was terrible. They had guards who would beat up the kids, make them walk a mile or two just to get some water. I mean, where kids actually were planning an escape. Like, okay, you see that truck? We're going to get in the truck. We're going to get out of here. And it just blew my mind because I complain about my little childhood. Like, I hated school. That's about it.
I know.
And
I know. Yeah.
These guys are trying to get out of something that's borderline a concentration camp. And it's like, what is happening? Do you know anything about those type of ordeals that teens or younger kids may have gone through?
Yeah, I do. And many people, your audience, can see them on the aftermath because she interviews a lot of what we call the second gens, which are people who were born into Scientology. So they don't really have a choice. You know what I mean? They're raised as Scientologists. And, to the parents, they're thinking, oh, this is the greatest thing on earth. We're going to raise them like that. But to the kids, it wasn't. I mean, it was a lot of abuse. I mean, I'm not sure which ranch you're talking about. There's Debbie Mace's ranch, which was like a public ranch that kids went to. There's the Sea Org ranch that was for the kids in the Sea Org. So those are two different things.
Okay.
But both of them were awful because they had a guy that actually sexually abused people at Debbie Mace's, and they were charging thousands of dollars to the parents.
Oh, yeah, pay us
Like,
so we could yell at your kids and
exactly.
touch them inappropriately. What a prick.
Yeah, I know, totally. And then the ranch, they probably had sexual abuse too. And a lot of the kids, it was awful. It was really, really hard for them. And again, for years, there was nobody speaking out. So if you leave, if you stepped off of anything, you're declared suppressive. And that means you're going to lose all your friends. You're going to be declared suppressive, which to them meant really bad things, like you're the most evil person on the planet. And, I think for a lot of kids, for a lot of adults, it's too much. My ex-husband is still in. It's just too much. It is, and it's not right. And for me, I don't even know. I mean, I do know, and I think for every person who's out, they had a similar thing, not necessarily as bad as mine, because mine was pretty bad, but each person has something that happened to them where they went, you know what, I didn't get into Scientology for this. I didn't. And it's like, it's just a line drawn in the sand of like, no, I'm not going to keep doing that. No. And then you start looking, and then you start realizing, holy shit, this is a mess. Just like the abortions. I didn't know that. I had no idea they made the Sea Org get abortions.
That's just terrible. I just don't understand how another person, another human could just be that shut off and uncaring. And
Google the Stanford experiment.
really I'm familiar with the Stanford experiment. I know that one.
Look at that. I mean,
Yeah.
Even Zimbardo said, who created it, said, I had no idea people could be brainwashed that fast. I mean, he thought it was going to take weeks and weeks until something really happened. For people who've never seen it, I still suggest you Google it. It's called the Stanford experiment. It was made up at Stanford University. And these kids were all checked to make sure they're mentally okay. They were. And half of them were guards and half of them were prisoners. And they kind of put them in a prison situation. And within, I think, 24 hours, they were beating, the guards were beating them up and treating them like awfully.
Oh yeah, they had the terminated way early.
Yeah, they were awful. And the other experiment that's great is the Milgram experiment. That is just unbelievable.
Okay, now, that one I'm not familiar with. So.
It's called the Milgram experiment, and you can Google it. Okay. But it's just awful. I mean, and it shows how authority just rules. All the guy had on was a white coat. That was it. That was the only thing that gave him the authority to tell this guy to do what he did. And the guy had said, let's say the level is 200. And he's like, I'm not.
Oh, that's the shocking experiment.
The shock treatment,
oh,
right?
Okay. I am familiar with it.
100. And he ends up going to 450 or 500. And this other guy's just screaming his lungs out. It's a pretend guy.
Yeah.
He's not really getting shocked, but he doesn't know it. And the only thing that's happening is the guy in the white jacket is ordering him to do it.
Yeah, that's just. Yeah, I guess the human mind is very susceptible if the right influences come your way.
Yeah. So it's very important that your audience learns. If your parents, make sure you learn about cults and then teach your kids about it, because they are after young people. If you're Hispanic, Mexican, Latino, from Puerto Rico, any Latino culture, they are after you. Just so you know, and there's very few videos in Spanish. So it's very key to try to learn about it, because they're good at what they do. They now speak Spanish. They're out on the streets speaking Spanish to Spanish-speaking people. And, they're nice people. They're like, okay, we'll come in.
Yeah. And that was the first step into the downfall, so to speak.
Yeah, I mean, Louis Farrakhan is a Scientologist from the Nation of Islam.
Yeah, when I was doing
how weird is that?
Yeah, when I was doing my research, he popped up, and then ironically, oddly enough, the Scientology and the Aftermath, he was on there last week. It was an
Right,
episode talking about him.
right.
And I was like, how did this happen? What the heck?
Well, she
That's
showed videos of him. He wasn't on it. It wasn't Louis Farrakhan on the Aftermath.
no, it wasn't him, but
He was showing videos about him
yeah,
and he ordering his community to join Scientology without saying the word. I made a video like 10 years ago about this because the night he ordered them, he said everyone is going to be on course by Tuesday night or we're going to thank you and say goodbye.
yeah, that
That's what happened. And I fired up my YouTube thing and I said, look, this is a message to the African American community. Scientology does not give a shit about you. I've been in it for 30 years. There were 5 Scientology black people in it. That was it. There were none other. They would not touch the black community. But now they realize they have communication to big, important people, some of them. They have money, some of them, many of them, and they have their bodies in the shop. And that's it. Those are the 3 reasons. Okay, so I make the video, I put it on the internet. That was Tuesday night. Sunday, my friend calls me and goes, turn on the TV. You're not going to believe it. And I turn it on. It's on Crow TV. This other guy, another black guy is on saying Louis Farrakhan is flipped out. And we're going to have an expert on to tell us about it. And it's me in my bedroom telling about Louis Farrakhan.
that's pretty awesome.
Not that I'm laughing at him. It was just so amazing how social networking works. And that's what's killing the Church of Scientology. That was my favorite thing that Anonymous put up, which was it's a picture of a whole bunch of guys with signs against Scientology and a giant sign saying, fuck, the internet is here. Right? And that is true. That is truly their downfall forever.
Out of curiosity, is there any particular reason why they didn't Scientology did not reach out to minorities in the States?
Yeah, because Hubbard said they were degraded beings. Who needs them? It's a money-making thing. I asked him that once in the 80s. I said, what about all these homeless people? What are we doing to help them? And this was an executive, and you know what he said? Tory, they're degraded beings. Scientology makes the able more able. We'll get them next lifetime.
Wow.
That's what he said.
Well,
And that was the beginning of me waking up going, now wait a second. Come on. What if I'd love to see you homeless for a day?
yeah, so it wasn't like, let's see, what was his name? Xenu in the modern looking planes flying into the planet dropping off humanity.
No. Xenu was 75 million years ago.
Oh my God.
That's a whole different thing. And for anybody who wants to know that story, you can go over to xenu.net. www.xenu.net. That's Andreas, my friend in Norway, and he's got all kinds of information on all of this.
Yeah, that got me because I'm primarily a paranormal supernatural channel, and that one got me. I was like, wait a second, sounds like some alien stuff here. What's going on? So.
And I'll tell you how it works because people ask me all the time. Well, how did that work for you? Because it's on what's called OT3. So we had OT clear, OT1, OT2, and then you get on to OT3, which is the Xenu story, right?
Mm-hmm.
And when I got on, it was in '79. Now they have a big course walking you into all this. But at the time, they just put me in like a closet and handed me this folder and said, here's OT3. And first you read a story about Hubbard and how he nearly died doing the research for this. And I thought, okay, well, I nearly died doing the research for Buddhism because I ended up getting epilepsy when I was 18. So I thought, okay, that's kind of similar, to trying to get to something higher. Anyway, I plugged into it. And so then I flipped the page and he goes, 75 million years ago, there was this evil warlord named Xenu. And I'm like, what? Kidding me? And at first, that was my first thought. We're like, what? But then I thought, you know what? I have epilepsy. I have yet to meet, to this day, a doctor that knows what causes seizures. They don't know. And I thought, well, maybe it is these BTs and clusters. BTs are body thetans, which are like spirits that are glued on you.
Mm-hmm.
And clusters are a group of these spirits that are glued on you that cause you problems. So I thought, well, maybe it's these guys causing me seizures. Maybe that's it.
Yeah, you got an answer or a possible answer to a
Yeah,
question that no
yeah.
one
So
else could answer.
I didn't care how weird it was. It's like, if it works, I don't care.
That is. I'm probably gonna have to talk about that story one day on another episode. Like my issue is I want to try to remain respectful to it, but I know I'm not, and I'm going to laugh my butt off. So that's one of the issues. It's yeah. I mean, and then I we got to remember too that Hubbard, he was a science fiction writer. I don't think he was a terribly good science fiction writer, but he did have that expressive imagination, and I guess it went into quite a few things.
Right. And he also did drugs, which most Scientologists in Scientology do not know. I didn't know that.
Oh,
I
I didn't
really
know that. That's funny. Huh.
drugs and pop. He not only popped medical pills, but he popped all kinds of pills.
Oh wow, so dope head too.
Yeah,
That would
yeah.
explain a lot, though.
I
Like
know. It really does.
it.
When you hear about it, you're like, oh, okay, that makes sense.
So, we're gonna start wrapping it up. And so, since we are wrapping it up, let's talk about your final days in Scientology. Like when you're starting to make your great escape and you're waking up and it's like, all right, it's time to go. You told me that when you were in the Sea Org, you went into your epilepsy. You didn't have the medicine and it kicked up, right?
No, what
Or
happened is I ran out of my medicine. So I said to my senior, look, I need to get more medicine. And he said, okay, we'll send you to the MLO, the medical liaison officer, which was an 18-year-old kid, untrained in medicine totally. And he said, look, you're the top 10, Sea Org is the top 10% of the planet. So we don't take medicine. So we're going to help you get off of it. You're going to take vitamins and Dianetics, and that's going to fix it. So I was 22, believed in them, so I did it. And I started having seizures after seizures after seizures. And of course, every time I had one, they would blame me, right? Which is what they always do. They always blame you. You're wrong, right? Like, you didn't handle it, or you didn't do this, or you're not being responsible enough. It's just this endless shit, right? And luckily, thank God, my mom stayed on top of it and kept, calling me. And one night, she said, what are you going to do tonight? And I said, I'm going out on a date. And she said, okay, I'll call you tomorrow. So she called me the next day and she said, how was your date? And I said, what date? And she said, okay, that's it, Tory. These people are killing you. And you're on your medicine today, and your doctor calls me today and says you're on your medicine, or I'm going to fly out there, and believe me, the Church of Scientology and L. Ron Hubbard will never forget your mom. And so I got back on my medicine that day. So that was in the 70s. Now roll forward to I escaped out in the 2000. Just so you know, it's such a detailed thing. I made a 10-part video after being out 10 years, because so many people asked me about how did you escape out and wake up and blah, blah, blah. So I made a 10-part video. You can go to Torymagoo, Torymagoo 44, +escape, and that brings up the 10-part video, which will really walk you through it. But anyway, I can answer your questions for now. So what was it you wanted me to tell?
actually, you did a good job. I'm gonna
Really?
plug. Yeah, I'm gonna actually plug your channel so people can see that.
Yeah,
Um,
it's really a good 10-part
yeah,
series.
and that link it's gonna be in the description. Like it's something you want to see because I actually saw part of it. So.
Yeah. You think it was pretty good?
Yes.
Yeah. I
Again,
mean, it's good in that the content of it. It's just so weird what happened, and how much of a true believer I was, and then to wake up, it was just so shocking. I mean, this all happened within like 24 hours.
yeah.
It was just
And I
wow.
mean, it's pretty eye opening too because you're entering the real world for the first time in how long? And you have
Well,
to,
I had worked in the real world
well,
because I had jobs, so I've been around people, but I wasn't in the Sea Org for long because they routed me out
yeah.
because of epilepsy. But it's still, now you're really out in the real world, and that was a whole transition in itself, which was ended up being wonderful, but it was very different.
Yeah, I would assume so. And, I really don't like that lie that they tell that they want to help people and get the
Uh,
planet clear. That really bugs me.
yeah,
I tell people straight up, I'm selfish, I'm greedy, I know this. Not gonna lie about it. But if I can help someone, I will help someone, but
sure.
I'm not gonna try to help the world. It's just not me, unfortunately. And to spread a false hope like that, because it is a lot of needy people. And I know they have facilities in Los Angeles, and I know there's one in Inglewood. And for those of you who's not from California or LA in particular, Inglewood's in the ghetto. Um, and they aren't doing jack to help those folks over there. And it's like, why would you?
Locked them out. I was there when they locked out a senator who came to help people on Skid Row. And I think what happened is they thought she was going to use Dianetics. And she said very overtly, this has nothing to do with Scientology or Dianetics. But they have what they call the community center there. It's the only one I've ever heard of. And they have it there. So they lock her out. Brilliant.
So nice work showing your true colors, guys.
I heard him on the phone to the senator saying, do not come down here. We're locked outside. And so what do? They send some moron out to me to say, what is your name? I said, who fucking cares what my name is? You lock these people out, you moron. It was like, and sorry for my swearing, but that's the Church of Scientology.
Oh no, it's fine. Swear all you want. I don't care. So, but yeah, I think this is a good spot to end it.
Well, thank you for having me on. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for coming on.
Oh, yeah. And for everyone, I can't say it enough. Look at both sides. Do not just look at one side. You don't have to believe me, but go do your own research. Learn to research and learn both sides. Because no one, and this is the checkmate of Scientology. All of us who are out, all of the ex-Scientologists, all of the anonymous, all of the never-ends, critics, people that were never even in Scientology who are fighting them, who are a lot of fans of Leah's, all those people, everybody, we can all say, look at both sides, learn both sides. We know you'll make up the right decision. We know nobody, if they learn both sides, they won't go in. No way. But the church has to keep sliming Leah. They have to keep sliming everyone that's out. They have to keep writing lies about us and say, don't talk to her. It just happened to me the other night. This guy, they have Winter Wonderland next to their testing center, and I was going to see Andy Mame. So I'm walking from the subway to Andy Mame, and I stop at the Winter Wonderland, and this guy says, come on in. And I said, nah, I really can't. And he goes, no, come on in. And I said, okay. So I walk in, and right there, a security guard walks up and goes, get out. You're not allowed in here. And I said, well, that changed. And I had it on video, so it was good.
Oh, that's just funny. Okay, so if people want to check out your videos, tell them again where they can go.
It's just go to YouTube and then Tory, Torymagoo 44. And then just so you know, my dad's nickname was Magoo. I gave him that because he had little tiny eyes like I do, and he was funny. And he was a broadcaster for NBC for football, as well as a quarterback and in the Football Hall of Fame. So his football number was 44, and he died when I was 22. So now I'm waking up when I was 53, and I didn't have anybody to talk to. And I just kind of beamed into my dad, and I could hear him just saying, get out of there, get out of LA, go. And I thought, okay, I'm keeping this guy near me. So that's why it's Torymagoo44.
All right. And again, that link will be in the description below, along with a lot of other links. And guys, don't forget to follow Unexplained Possibilities on Facebook and Twitter. And remember, guys, there are things that go bump in the night. Chances are it's Tom Cruise, so just hit him with a water pistol or something.
Spit bombs.
Bye, everybody.
Bye. Thank you.